Good,
Hey,
good evening. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm also fine. Nice to see you on Zoom platform.
Yeah, good morning to you all. Yeah, I am so honored to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us on this Zoom meeting, and we are so excited to interact with you.
Yeah, I was really honored that you reached out, and I'm so happy to be part of your class today.
Yeah. So before I start the session, on behalf of my school, on behalf of my students, I would like to extend my gratitude to you for making a wonderful video for my students as well as my community. We are so grateful to you.
Yeah, absolutely. When you reached out, the thing that really stood out to me was that this is a worldwide challenge that we are all um, and how we are all in this together. We are all working on this together to overcome this worldwide challenge. This year, I taught my 11 and 12-year-old students through Google Meets, through Zoom calls. We all uh, school this year for us was we're all in our homes, and it was really different. It was one of the biggest challenges of my career as a teacher, but I feel like I learned so much in that time. Hey, Scout, here, my dog just her one of my dogs. Let's see if she'll come up here. Uh, there she is. Uh, yeah, this is Scout. Oh, she
Hello.
wants down. Here you go, Scout. Um, but yeah, you might hear them in the background from time to time, so I wanted to introduce you first.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Ben, would you like to introduce yourself first of all?
Sorry, one more time.
Would you like to introduce yourself? So most of my
Yeah,
students are.
absolutely. Yeah, so my name is Ben Honeycutt. I'm a middle school teacher from the United States. I teach in a state called Colorado, and I teach sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade technology. So I teach 11 through 14-year-olds technology. I've also taught English as well as social studies. I also started an NGO called Open World Cause, and we have actually traveled to Nepal on 2 occasions, and worked in the Terai area. Just right off the border from India. And those experiences working in Nepal, we've also partnered with schools in Kenya, but those experiences working in Nepal were the best experiences of my life. And I was even had a marriage ceremony with my wife in Nepal. And I still wear this ring that I got at the ceremony. Um, yeah, it was very special for me. And
Yeah.
the last thing
So
is, I've also written a book, um, and also work as an author um, uh, in as sort of a hobby of mine.
we have many questions. In fact, all the questions related to your journey to Kenya, Nepal, and about your book and about your career. We have a few questions. So I would like to ask one of my students to introduce herself, and later she can ask you a question. Neeraja, start your introduction, please.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I am Neeraja. I am studying 9th grade. My hobbies are playing games and watching TV. My future ambition is to become a nurse.
It is so nice to meet you. Uh, did you say your name was Nira?
Neeraja.
It is so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for introducing yourself.
So, Neeraja, ask your question.
What was so fascinating in Kenya?
In Kenya, I really loved. We went on a safari and I got to see where African elephants often go to a cave that we got to go to. And you can see in the cave where they rub their tusks against the wall, against the cave wall, and that was amazing. Kenya was also the greenest place. Where we were in Kenya, we were in the Rift Valley, really close to a mountain called Mount Elgon, and it got so much rain while we were there. The monsoon season there, it was so rainy, but every time the rains would end, it was so beautiful. It was so green and wonderful. Yeah, it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Great. Lohita, it's your turn now.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Hello,
How are you, sir?
I am doing very well. How are you?
Fine, sir. My name is Lohita Gidya. I'm studying 7th grade. I am 13 years old. My hobbies are reading books, playing games, dance, and watching TV. My life ambition is to become an English teacher.
Ah, yeah. Uh, no, that's wonderful. I wish you the best on becoming an English teacher. That's what I've done for the last 3 years now. The last 3 years I have taught English, and I love it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, go ahead and ask the question.
Yes, sir. How long did you stay in Himalayan kingdom?
Yeah, so when I first went to Nepal, I was there for a month. I was there for 26 days. I loved it. It was the first place I ever meditated and learned the meaning of the symbol. Um, and I actually, it changed my life. I now meditate because of my experiences in Nepal. Um, and it also made me want to be a teacher. The teachers in Nepal connected with their students, and the students trusted their teachers, and it made me want to be that kind of teacher. The second time I went to Nepal was 4 years later, and I was there for 2 weeks. And I loved it. I was in the hills in the Dong region of Nepal.
So then I have a
Thank you, sir.
supplementary question for you.
Yeah.
You have been currently teaching in U.S.A. You are born and brought up in U.S.A. But you have been to Nepal for a couple of times. So you have observed the system prevailing in Nepal. I think the system prevailing in Nepal, by and large, same that is being practiced in India. So what did you personally observe the difference in terms of teaching between United States of America and Nepal?
That's a wonderful question. Um, with what I was learning in the United States, a teacher and a student, there was supposed to be almost a separation where teachers were supposed to be very formal uh, and really not share a lot about maybe their personal lives or who they were as a person to students. And it was always supposed to be very separate in terms where the teacher is the professional, the students are learning from the teacher. That was at least what I learned a lot of. There were a lot of classes in the U.S. that that were really that were that were teaching that was the best way. And the school that I was in Nepal, um, what I saw is every day the teachers after school would go out and play recess. They would go out and play like games with their students. They also one thing I saw a lot of was tea in Nepal. Like the amount of kind of tea breaks that I saw, those are not common in the United States. The United States does not have a lot of culture around tea, and so to go to Nepal, and the chai was so good. Oh my goodness, the milk tea was so good. But what I saw though was I saw teachers connecting with students in a way. And it made me want to connect with my students in the United States in that way. I wanted my students to be able um, to trust me as a teacher, but I also wanted students to feel safe in their classroom. And so that was part of what I took with me from Nepal to the United States. Is I wanted my classroom to be a safe place for students where they could be themselves. And so, yeah, that was a really good question. But yeah, that is what I took with me from Nepal. Um, and Kenya was also really impactful to me too as a teacher. Specifically in Kenya, there is a big culture for saying goodbye, for goodbye speeches, and it's a chance for you to tell somebody how much they meant to you and how important they were to you. And so every year I do the same thing, or I try to do the same thing for my students, where I give each student an individual goodbye before they leave my class and enter the next grade.
Yeah. So that's a great experience. I think sharing. I think you shared us a very important aspect as far as the Nepalese education system is concerned. Being living quite close to the Himalayan kingdom, even though we are sharing the border with Himalayan kingdom, we haven't learned that much inputs regarding the Nepalese education system. But today we are so fortunate to be able to learn so much about the Nepalese education. And by the way, I would like to tell you one more thing, that today yoga has become a world symbol of maybe keeping your mind and body peace, because yoga has become a world symbol of peace. So you know that yoga has taken its roots in India. I think yoga has become a world symbol, and it is being taught almost all the countries across the globe. So once yoga was actually not even known to Indians, even though yoga itself was taken its roots in India, but not many Indians actually, in fact, knew about yoga. Today, the yoga has become a symbol of peace and a symbol of health. So, what do you say about yoga? I think you have already been to Nepal, and in Nepal itself, I think they know very well about the yoga, because they are all the Hindus actually. The Hindus, in fact, they practice the yoga. So, what do you observe in Nepal in terms of yoga?
Yeah, so I always wanted to learn more about yoga because I didn't when I was in school. It's becoming more and more practiced in the United States, but where I grew up, it wasn't very common to see yoga being practiced. So when I came to Nepal, I was really fascinated to learn all about it. I actually have a back injury. I have a major back injury, um, and which gives me pain quite often. And so I wanted to learn more about yoga because I had read that so many people who had my injury um, really felt incredible relief with the practice. And so the first time I went to Nepal, I went with someone named Shelby. We had a group of 5 people, and Shelby has gone on. She is now a yoga instructor in the United States. Shelby also is now the executive director of Open World Cause. And so we've stayed connected. I now report to her in the organization. She's the leader of our NGO. But she now continues to teach yoga classes in the United States. And the second time we went to Nepal in 2019, she actually was a part of a yoga class. She went to a yoga class in Kathmandu. So it's been really amazing to see how inspiring our trips to Nepal have been, not only for myself but for everyone in the organization. It's changed our lives, and it's made me always so excited. The teachers that I know in Nepal I consider to be family, and it's going to Nepal has changed my life, and it's something that Nepali culture is something that I'll always be so thankful to have been able to go and to have met some of the incredible people in that in Nepal.
Thank you. Shruti, it's
Yeah.
your turn. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Try to introduce
Hello,
yourself.
sir.
Hello.
Sir.
Turn your,
Hi.
turn your camera on. Shruti, turn your camera on so that our guest teacher can see you. Yes, good.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I'm Shruti. I'm studying 6th grade. My hobbies are reading books, watching TV, and playing games. My life ambition is to become a software engineer. Can I ask my question, sir?
Of course, please.
How different is your country from Nepal in terms of education system?
That's a very good question. So there are a few there are a few differences. So um, one thing I got to know in Nepal was I was often asked, or when students would come to school, when they would get off their school bus and come to school, they would often ask, good morning, or they would often say, "Good morning, sir. How are you?" And I would say, "I am fine. How are you?" And they would say, "I am fine. Thank you, sir." And um, it was always very those introductions were always very formal there was always a lot of respect on those introductions and I would say in the United States it's those types of introductions, they aren't quite as formal. Like my students will come in and be like, "What's up, Mr. Honeycutt? How are you doing today?" Or they would or "Sup, dude?" That's kind of how in the United States a lot of my students will kind of introduce themselves. Some might just give me a nod. And also, at least the school that I was at in Nepal, everyone had a uniform in the school that I was at in Nepal. In the U.S., I teach at a public school, so there's no uniforms at my school, and so that is one difference too that I saw. I think one big thing in Nepal is there are two major exams that students have to take. I don't know if those exams are also common in India, but it's like a student leaving certificate exam that they need at 16, and then there's another major exam that around 18 that students take. And in the United States, there are exams, but there aren't any exams that are that high stakes, because I know in Nepal, students want to pass those exams so they can continue their education. In the United States, there aren't quite exams that are that stressful, that are that, they're usually the exams that we take in the United States are done so that students have more choice in the universities that they go to. So that's a major difference that I saw later in school when students got to be a little older, from Nepal and the United States. There was one other major difference. Oh, the one big difference is students in Nepal at the school that I was at. They started their days with meditation. And also dancing was very, very common. So meditation and dance in Nepal. In the United States, it is not so common to see meditation and dance in schools. It's usually when students in the United States get their exercise, it might be outside at recess, but it also might be in something that they call PE, physical education. So yeah, those are some of the differences that I saw.
Great. Varshita, it's your turn.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
My name is Vashita. I'm studying 9th grade. My hobbies are reading books and playing games. Can I ask a question, sir?
Of course.
What did you most like in Nepal?
I loved Dollbot. love dalbat so much. It's my favorite food, and I I loved how colorful everything was in Nepal. I thought that whether that was like color in the saris that I saw or just the color of the buildings. I loved how often I saw the color red. Um, and in the U.S., it's not common to see such bright and beautiful color just kind of everywhere that you see. Um, I loved in Nepal. Neighbors were neighbors in Nepal. It was very common for us. I would be sitting and drinking milk tea, and maybe eating jackfruit or eating dalbat, mango. Oh my gosh, the mango and lychee. I miss lychee so much. I love lychee. But I would be sitting and eating, and neighbors would just come inside the house. Like the neighbors would just walk right in and start asking questions, and there would be laughter. People would, but it was in the United States that never happens. No one just walks into somebody's house. Like that's not something that you do in the United States. And I loved how everyone was so kind to me and so warm to me. It was the first place that I ever felt like I was at home in Nepal. It's still, I'm thankful every day that I went to Nepal, every single day, because it really changed my life.
Thank you,
Great,
sir.
Yeah, thank you.
really great experience. Veda, it's your turn now. Veda, are you there? So it seems that Veda has some problem with internet connectivity. So
That's okay.
Veda, are you there? Okay, then I have a question for you, and you have
Yes.
just showed us and you have shared us one book actually penned by you. So would you mind explaining something about the book?
Yeah. So the book was inspired. So I had a lot of experiences with bullying in school. Is bullying a topic that you talk about a lot? Yeah. So it's I when I was in school, I was bullied a lot by other students, and so I wanted to write a book that was inspired from those experiences, but also um, that helps students show that it was all going to be okay, that things could get better. Um, and so this book is a fictional book, but it's set in a high school in the United States, and it's just all about how hard bullying can be, how damaging it can be. But I wanted it to be a message of hope. That's why the cover is a dandelion flower. In the United States, dandelions are considered pests. They're considered weeds. You're supposed to get rid of them if you see a dandelion. And I always thought that a dandelion was just so beautiful. And so the cover, this was also designed by Shelby, who is the head of Open World Cause. But the cover, uh, everything is black on the background, but the dandelion is supposed to be golden and bright to show that as hard as things can be, um, you can always find your light. You can always find your light to keep going. So that was the goal of the book. And also I had to publish it because last year my wife and I found out that we were expecting our first child. And so I wanted to publish it before my son was born. My son is now 7 months old, and he's learning more every day.
So, in fact, in my academic year, I think we have a lesson called Nitu Views. As you know that he was a Toso, in fact, by birth, and he is currently living in your country. And we knew that he was also once humiliated and bullied and teased by his classmates when he was in mainstream school. So we learned many interesting facts about his life. So we had a lesson actually in our 10th class, 10th class, whereas they have a lesson. So in his lesson, I think in his book also is a biography book. He mentioned many incidents how he was bullied and teased by his classmates, and there were many times he did think of ending his life, and he expressed the same thoughts with his mother also, and he made a few attempts to kill himself, but those attempts luckily didn't make him die. So actually, bullying is a really unfortunate practice. I think not just in the United States of America. I think elsewhere in the world it is prevailing. So, do you have any other association maybe to create an awareness among the children in order to stop the bullying? Because you have just told me that you are one of the students who are bullied by the students, maybe when you are a student. So, do you have any plan to build an association and through which you can create the awareness how people are troubled, and sometimes their mental status may be out of control if you keep bullying them, if you keep teasing them, and so they may suffer some mental issues. So, do you think of initiating any association and through which you can uh, make some propaganda and make the plans to reach to the children and how bad it is? And yeah.
Yeah, so I want to create a classroom lesson, like a series of classroom lessons from this book that where students can have real conversations about where bullying might happen in schools in the United States. The research that I could find, about 20% of students, so 1 out of every 5 students say they're bullied in school, but about 2 out of every 5 students say they're bullied online. And so bullying looks a little different today than it did in my childhood, where the internet wasn't, you didn't have opportunities to join, I think, social media platforms where the internet was more anonymous. It was more easy. You didn't really, when you were on the internet, you weren't your own identity. And so now with social media, it's much easier for students to find each other. And so bullying can often happen outside of school, beyond school hours. And so I want these lessons to be able to create like a real dialogue, as you were saying about like why does bullying happen, um, and also but also have it be an opportunity for students to tell the adults in the building, to tell the teachers about where bullying might be happening, whether that's in their school or whether that's online. Um, and I also want it to be an opportunity so that students know what resources they have um, in their schools. In the United States, schools often have a counselor that students can talk to, and sometimes a social worker who can help students who are in really dark places and who need help. And so I want it to be that kind of opportunity where if students need help, they can get that help.
Great. That's a great contribution. In fact, please keep going like that. So then we have 9 minutes time is left in this Zoom slot. So you have just told us that you are currently teaching English as well as social studies. So we in fact learn in the English as a third language. Our first language is our mother tongue, second language is our national language, third language is English. So, being a native English speaker, so I think you have already been to Nepal, and Nepal where the English is still is a foreign language. I think I don't know whether it is a third language or the second language. I have no information about that. So you have already noticed what are the mistakes, the common mistakes that a non-native speakers make while speaking. So having that knowledge, in fact, so what kind of suggestions you would like to give, what kind of suggestions you would like to offer to my students to improve their communicative skills in English, especially?
Can you ask one more time? You cut out there for a second. I missed that last part. I'm so sorry.
In fact, you have been to Nepal, and in Nepal, you have witnessed some classrooms where the classroom teaching took place. And of course, in English also, in English subject, you might have observed some of the classes of English classes in Nepal. So you might have observed the mistakes that the students make while speaking in English, especially in Nepal. So even, of course, the Nepalese children and Indian children, I by and large say, because both actually are the non-native speakers of English language. So we, as being a non-native English speakers, we tend to make many mistakes because we always speak under the influence of our mother tongue, whether it is intonation mistake or the stress or any other grammatical mistake. So what kind of common mistakes that non-native speakers like the Indians and Nepalese make? Of course, you have already observed those mistakes. And if you have observed, could you please give us some suggestions to my students to improve their communicative skills in English?
Yeah, so just advice about like learning and grasping the English language. Yeah. Um, so um, so my wife is actually a French teacher. My wife Natalie. So she teaches students who were born in the United States whose first language is English. She's teaching a second language often to those students. And so I think when anyone's learning a language, it takes time. It's so difficult. Like I'm still learning French. I know a few words in Nepali. I wanted to introduce myself. I was too embarrassed to do it, but I wanted to say namaskar and namaskar. I know thank you is dhanyavad. And some very basic words in Nepali, and in French I'm learning French for my wife, and it's tough. I make mistakes whenever I speak French. It's so tough to learn another language, and so I think what's important that my wife has seen, I'm so uh, I feel so thankful every day that I met my wife, and because I've learned so much from her, and she's such an amazing teacher. And part of what her students do is something called an AP exam, and if students pass it, they get her high school students get college credit, get university credit. And last year, all of her students passed. Every single one of her students who took that test passed, and I was so proud. I was so proud of her. And I asked her, because I'm learning French, and I'm really bad at French. I'm not very good at speaking French. I'm like, so what do I need to do? And the advice that she gave me was to speak the language as much as I can, as many conversations as you can have. In the second language that you're learning, just speaking the language is so important. So any opportunities, and she said there's going to be sometimes you might not be able to think of that word in that second language, and it can be so tough. What I tell my wife all the time when I'm trying to learn French, I'm like, I know how to speak this in English, and if I could speak English right now, it would sound so smart, but I don't know the words in French, and so it doesn't sound very smart. But she always says that's okay. You speak as much as you can, and if there's a word that you can't think of, you want to talk around it. You want to describe it, and so maybe you can't think. When I went to the Chitwan um, uh, national park in Nepal, and so let's pretend like maybe I'm trying to think of the word for rhino, but I can't think of the word rhino. So instead, if I can describe some other things, so I could say, oh my gosh, it's this really big animal that would be so dangerous to be around. It has a horn on its head, and it's about as big as an elephant. I'm not saying the word rhino, but I'm saying everything I can around it. And what that does is it gives you more practice speaking the second language. Um, and it also allows you to make associations with new words. You're making comparisons with new words that you're learning. It's so hard to learn a language, and I've been so impressed with everyone here. English is such a different language. Did you say that Hindi was everyone's first language?
Actually, Hindi is our national language, and we are actually living in southern part of India, where we speak many regional languages. So we, in fact, speak Telugu language. It is our regional language. Hindi is actually our second language. Hindi is our second
So-
language. But we are not good at Hindi. We can't speak Hindi.
So many of you are learning like a third language then. Like you're learning your third. That is amazing. Like it's so difficult to learn two languages, much less three. And I am sure English is such a different language. I'm actually, so something I can actually show you. My shirt has the Nepali alphabet on it. I don't know the shirt I'm wearing today. But just if you look at the alphabet, you see how different it is. And so the fact that you're learning a third language is amazing. And what I would say, the thing that my wife Natalie, Nat, says over and over, is to just practice speaking as much as you can. It can be transformative, and it's okay to make mistakes. You should all hear me speak French or Nepali. I am very, very bad at those languages, and that's okay. It's part of the learning process. The first time, this is a different example, but the first time that I ever submitted a paper, when I wrote for the first time, it got marked up. I did so bad. I like failed the paper. And now I'm able to write books, but I wouldn't have been able to write books if I didn't make mistakes. And so if you are making mistakes with your English, just keep practicing, just keep speaking. It's so amazing that you can all have these Zoom calls and be able to speak with people around the world, because I think that's such a great way to learn. And I think I was so honored when I was asked to be here today.
Thank you so much. I think thank you so much, Ben, for joining us. And I think it must be 11 o'clock, I think, over there in your country. So it must be your bedtime, but you have made it to a Zoom class, and all the way from U.S.A. So thank you so much for taking your time and for sparing your valuable time, and that too your little kid is there in your home. And so thank you so much for sparing your valuable time. Students, say bye to our guest teacher.
Bye, sir.
Students,
Bye.
Sir.
have your
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Ben, bye for now.
Bye for now. See you again soon.